Greetings from Cape Coast Castle. That's the castle restaurant. Castle building. Very beautiful scenery. Look at that. It's all about research and tourism. So I'm still on the cocoa tour. I find myself in Cape Coast, so decided to visit the castle today. Today's Sunday. Very siren environment. So that's the Cape Coast Castle. The sea defense with the rocks. That's the sea place. Look at some fishermen at work. Some men at work. We have restaurants spread all over the beach, close to the castle. So the fishermen are still at work, so they sing as they pull the rope. They are pulling the fish with the net, or the net containing the fish. Oh yeah then. So that's the United Nations Educational Science, Scientific and Cultural. Still at the Cape Coast Castle. So there's the entrance to the castle. You have to wash your hands due to COVID. So it's just opposite the John Evans Atamio's Presidential Library, just opposite, right in Cape Coast. So we are heading inside the castle. Nose marks. So yeah, I have my nose marks. So first to the... It's almost 5 cities for Ghanaians. Good morning. Yeah. Okay.
Please join us in the low captivity.
Okay.
Yes, we are now hearing vomit, leftover food, among other materials. So the entire floor was covered with these materials up to this level, and they lived in it.
What?
their feces, urine, vomit, leftover food, piled up to this level, and they lived in it. There are samples of their feces on the wall that suggest that yes, they lived in their feces. They had no option than to live in their feces. They had no option than to live in their leftover food. Our ancestors had no option than to live in their urine for 2 weeks to 3 months. Indeed, they lost their feelings as human beings. Today, we all are advocating for human rights. They had no right to do anything. They were not considered as human beings. They were treated as cargo and human beings.
This mostly is 1,000 people. It's good.
Excavated. The rest were not excavated. Therefore, we are working on the remains of our ancestors. The only source of light and ventilation to 200 men. Yeah, we are in a third chamber. But then it is important to recognize that Europeans came to the Gold Coast as traders and then also as missionaries. Yes, the Portuguese were the first European nation to have come to the Gold Coast. They came around 1471. They brought us the first church. That was the Roman Catholic Church. And so the Roman Catholic Church was established in the courtyard of the Elmina Castle. The people of Denmark brought us Presbyterian Church. And so Presby was established on top of the male captive dungeon at the Christian Workers in Accra. The British brought us the first English church, Church of England, which changed name to Anglican Church. The Anglican Church was established right on top of this chamber. It started around 1752. Methodist Church started in the courtyard on the 1st of January 1835. So once we were preaching forgiveness up there, our ancestors were here sleeping in their own faces, dying in their numbers. So ironically, heaven up there, hell down here, which means that if you were in hell, there was no way you could go to heaven. In other words, our ancestors were not allowed to join them there to worship the Almighty God. Source of light and ventilation. A spiral right in front of the church. This was right in front of the church. As the merchants went to church to worship the Almighty God, they saw our ancestors here sleeping in their own faces, dying in their numbers. After church services, we saw them here calling for help but no help. But I'm not the right person to judge, so please let's proceed. Fourth chamber, source of light and ventilation. The final chamber. But you realize this space is different. It's a great room. There's a small chamber there. It's an African traditional temple, a shrine of deity. Here is brighter. We have some reeds over here. This shrine wasn't part of the dungeon system. Whilst our ancestors were here, this wasn't here. From this side to that end, there was a tunnel, underground passage. They used to walk through to join the boats, then onto the ships. The tunnel was closed around 1833 when the trade was abolished in these dungeons. We can't walk through because of the fact that it's been closed. However, we will soon walk on it and look at part of it. It's about 72 meters. Now this is one of the 77 shrines in Cape Coast. Before the arrival of the Europeans, our ancestors used to worship the Almighty God, treat them upon the Supreme Being through natural things, such as rocks, rivers, mountains, trees, among other objects. So at the time, there was a very big rock occupying this piece of land. Chiefs of the land used to come here to worship. But when the Europeans acquired the land from the chiefs were not allowed to come here to worship. For that reason, a ritual was performed. Part of the rock was removed from here to town. Up there, there's a commercial bank. They used to go to that side to worship instead of here. But after the trade had been abolished, another ritual was performed and it was brought back to its original place. That is why this is here. Here in Cape Coast, there are 77 lesser gods, 77 shrines in Cape Coast. This is one of them. It is called Untitled. Untitled is not just one of the gods in Cape Coast. It is the head of all the 77 shrines in Cape Coast. The priest in charge is called Nana Kwame. He uses palm wine to pour libation to communicate to the spirit. That is why you see the bottles. When the chiefs of the land come here to perform their rituals, they sit on the stools. Now let me emphasize that millions of our ancestors died. Millions of them died. Quantitatively, it's been estimated that about 210 million of our ancestors were enslaved. Out of the 210 million, 60 million attempted the Middle Passage. With the 60 million, just about 12.5 million were able to survive the journey. So you can imagine, to survive the Middle Passage, which was worse than the situation here, and to get to the New World, it is the grace of the Almighty God. So my guest, brothers and sisters like you brought this to pay tribute to those who died. May their souls rest in peace.
So why do you have money here? I see some 5 cedars.
Yeah, it is donation from visitors like you.
Oh.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay. It serves as a cemetery, and that there are 4 identified graves over here. 1 here, 3 there. Here we have Biku. Biku stands for Philip Kwaku, a Reverend Philip Kwaku. Philip was a native of Cape Coast, born and bred right here in Cape Coast. His father was a slave merchant, a local slave dealer, a middleman. And that as a result of the relationship that his father had with the English, Philip was awarded a scholarship by the leader of the Anglican Church, Reverend Thomas Thompson, to study abroad to become a missionary. Philip attended Oxford University. He was the first black man to be ordained as an Anglican priest in England. He was equally appointed as the first school headmaster in Gold Coast, Nangan. He served in the castle as a priest and also a schoolmaster for 50 years. He died at the age of 75 on the 17th of October 1816. And so every 17th October, the Anglican community come here to celebrate Reverend Philip Kwaku's day. Philip Kwaku, that was the Anglican Church. The first Africa established around 1752 under the leadership of Reverend Thomas Thompson. The church is now Children's Library. British Army commander and a lawyer by profession. He died at the age of 38 on the 2nd of July, 1812. Here we have Letitia Elizabeth London. Letitia Elizabeth London was a British journalist. She came here around 1838 to visit her husband, George Mclean. She died in 2 months after arrival. Some say she poisoned herself. Some say she was poisoned. Others say malaria killed her. We don't know which is which. She died at the age of 36 around 1838. Here we have George Mclean, or Captain George Mclean, Letitia's husband. Mclean was a Scottish. He came here around 1830 as an administrator. In 1833, he enforced a law to abolish the slave trade in this custom. In 1843, he established the first court of justice in the country. As he came to the coast, he learned about our values, our tradition, and our customs. Therefore, he used to settle disputes amongst the chiefs. In 1844, he designed a bond. That bond paved the way for the English to colonize Gold Coast, now Ghana, for 113 years. He died at the age of 46, around 1847. Malaria killed Mclean. Malaria killed him.
Interesting.
Yeah, sure, this one, I'm not sure.
Malaria killed him.
It's used to be harvested rainwater.
So water for the captive.
Today, we've connected pipe-borne water into it. So we use this water for painting and other renovation works in the castle. It is 18 feet deep, 5 feet wide. 18 feet deep, 5 feet wide. 4 of them through here to the cistern or reservoir. Currently, we are on top of the canal. The canal is in the top. We'll soon look at that canal. They have canal boards there for defense. Canals and canal boards for defense. Indeed, the trade was profitable. For that reason, Europeans were always fighting amongst themselves. Yeah. To aside that, you fight, you conquer, you take over. The Portuguese were here, Swedish were here, Danish were here, Dutch were here before the British. So the British built the castle in 1665. They used our ancestors as a labor force. As they built the castle, they used this to defend it. So anytime they spotted any invader ships, some of the boats were parked in each of the cannons. Gunpowder was added. Fire was set over here, and it moved. Boom. On paper, one could travel as far as 1,000 meters. That is 1 kilometer. It hit the ship, it reached to the ship, water enters the ship. Now let's look at parts of the channel and then continue from there.
The Portuguese.
The Portuguese actually did not build a castle.
Okay.
They built the regular castle, but partly they also built a timber trading lodge on this piece of land. Yeah, but then along the
So
line,
the
they
bombs?
abandoned it. They left. They went to Angola, Mozambique. So it means that they abandoned the land. So Swedish also came for the land. They built a fort over here. Danish occupied the fort. Dutch occupied the fort. So the English took over from the Dutch in 1664. Through additional demolition, reconstruction, the English built this over a period of 300 years.
What you told us? What you told us about the male dungeon? I think it was started by which people? The British started.
The British built the castle. The British built this. Yes.
And that's what they were using the male dungeons to, like the male. They were
Part of the tunnel.
No. Part of the tunnel. Wow. There are no steps, nothing. My God. No steps. Part of the tunnel for slave trade.
The end of the tunnel, the end of the underground passage. Here was the final exit. So they moved out this way, they joined the boats, then onto the ships. But the waves used to come here, indeed, the waves used to the steps. So officers closed this side. They created a new exit down there. Therefore, they were no longer moving through this direction. They moved out this way. The end of the tunnel was closed around 1833 when the trade was abolished in these dungeons. Let's visit the punishment cell for the female captives. From there, we will proceed to the female captives dungeon.
We are still inside the Cape Coast Castle. Slave trade.
Punishment cell for the female captives. Indeed, the English did not come along with their wives. For that reason, they depended on the female captives for sexual services. They raped the women. But those women who resisted the officers' rape were given some severe lashes. After giving them some lashes, they brought them here. They locked them up. Food and water was given to them through this small window. They created a hole here in order for them to defecate here and then also to urinate here to serve as a terrain for others. Punishment cell for the female captives. In terms of numbers, depending on the number that resisted the officers' rape at the time, it could be 20 or more or less for the time, and that they would be in here for 5 to 7 days. Punishment cell. Three dungeons, one here, one is here. Let's quickly visit this time. Be here for 2 weeks minimum, 3 months maximum. At the time, there wasn't any sanitary pad. Menstruation happened right here. They lived in their menses. There was an entrance, the officers stood here. They selected some of the women, took them up, and forced them for sexual services. Some of the officers went to town, they got married. Some of the women out there, they had children with them. And those children were educated. And so Western education in the country started in the Elmina Castle, and then here in the Cape Coast Castle. Western education in the country started around 1529. Those children were given European names such as Johnson, Smith, Ferguson, Addison, Morrison, among other citizens. So these names are very common, especially along the coast of Ghana. This is an indication that we still have the descendants of those children in the country. Source of light and ventilation are there. Any questions? You might have heard of this famous door today. The original door was very short and narrow, such that one person could walk through at a time. Should you go to the Elmina Castle, you see the original door of no return. This one was enlarged because this place became the seat of government. Here in Ghana, Cape Coast was the capital town, and the cabinet seat was relocated to Accra on the 19th of March, 1877, because of political and economic reasons. So as our ancestors used this door to the Americas, to the Caribbean island, to the West Indies, they were not expected to come back to Africa. They lost their identity. Properties that they had in Africa, they lost everything. They lost contact with family members. Today, we are using the same door of no return. However, you are assured that we shall return.
Fishing nets.
Yeah, so
Oh.
again, the ships could not come to this part of the shore because this part is out. So they used boats to convey them and then transfer it to the shore. They were packed like sardines and then they died in their numbers. Those who died were thrown into the ocean for the fishes to eat them up. Those that were found sick and weak were equally thrown into the ocean for the fishes to eat them up. They spent about a month to 3 before getting to the New World, depending on the direction of the wind, the weather, and then also the destination. In 1998, 22 years ago, Ghana celebrated the first Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, to commemorate the end of slavery. The occasion was dubbed the Great Homecoming. During that celebration, 2 of our ancestors were exhumed from their graves and were brought back to the castle. They were exhumed from Jamaica and then New York. Some were castled from New York, but then Crystal from Jamaica. Through airplane, they brought them to Kutuka International Airport. Through the land, they got to a community called Abanze. Through the ocean, they came back to the castle through this same door. Here in the castle, a ceremony was performed. After that ceremony, they were taken back to Asina Mansion, where they took their last African bath for grave burial. So whenever you go to the Asina Mansion slave market, you will see those graves over there. Samuel Carson's grave and then Madame Crystal's grave. Asina Mansion is on the Cape Coast Kumasi Highway. It's about 45 minutes drive from here, depending on how fast you drive. Their homecoming is symbolic. It is to break the idea of no return so that our brothers and sisters in the diaspora can come back to pay homage to our ancestors. The door of no return has been reversed to door of return. That's as you see it out there. So on that score, we can now return. But if you want to drink water, please do. There's water here. If you need a drink or biscuit, you get it from here. Fan or handkerchief, you get it from here. Coffee is here.
Buy water.
Because you have your shells
Shells.
for sale. Right?
Yeah.
What kind of fish is this one? Fish there. Number. Oh. These are fish shells.
Among other materials that were used
Warehouses.
in exchange as our ancestors were kept. Gold, ivory, and spices were kept over here before shipment. The upper part was the apartment for the officers. Again, Western education in the country started in Elmina Castle, and then here in the Cape Coast Castle. Here in the Cape Coast Castle, it started in the church up there. But then as the student population increased, they moved to the first floor. Hospitals and clinics in the country started in the first floor. We are now going to the condemned cell. So this served as a cell, but not any ordinary cell. It served as a condemned cell. We are entering, but please, mind your head. Otherwise, we carry the edifice to wherever we came from. Your head.
Condemned cell. Oh. Good. No light. No source of light.
Condemned cell.
Those are free
Yeah,
shots.
some of our ancestors made an attempt of fighting for their freedom. Some made an attempt of escaping. Those who made such an attempt were caught and were condemned in here. No water, no source of ventilation, no food, no light. Through suffocation and starvation, they struggled and died. As they died, they were thrown into the ocean for the fishes to eat them up. 3 doors. 2 have been removed, only 1 left. And even the 1 door left with the heat in here. There's an evidence that yes, our ancestors went through hell, they went through ordeal, they went through pains and difficulties. May their souls rest in perfect peace.
Amen.
Please mind your head as we move out. Let's proceed to the option.
This is boy.
Palava is a Portuguese word. It or to negotiate, to talk. So as our ancestors were marched down to the capital, here was the first port of call. Doctors and nurses were here together with the merchants to examine their strength. The price of a captive was determined based on the strength. And they used second-hand clothing, mirror, gunpowder, schnapps, tobacco, among other European goods in exchange for our ancestors. The bond of 1844, which paved the way for the British to colonize this country for 113 years, was signed over here. Important meetings were held over here. Therefore, the history of Ghana and then also the history of the transatlantic slave trade cannot be complete without talking about this war, because the law played a major role in the history of Ghana as well as the transatlantic slave trade. Any questions?
You don't bother getting food.
All the guns that were used.
I made you aware that Anglican Church started in the castle around 1752. As they moved from the castle, that is the first Anglican church building in the country. It was built around 1865. I also mentioned that Methodist Church started in the castle around 1835. As they moved, that is the first Methodist church building in the country, the one behind the mast with the green roof. We have Roman Catholic Church at the extreme end, and that because of the Methodist Church here in particular, this part of Cape Coast is called Chapel Square. And here we have Fort William on the hill, built around 1820. English soldiers were there 24/7 to protect the castle both inland and offshore. Where we have the shops was the soldiers' barracks. English soldiers were here 24/7 to protect the castle. Residents in the country started from here after the abolition of the slave trade. Let's visit Mclean's Hall and then continue from there. That's Mclean's Hall. Now let me react that Mclean established the first court of justice in the country around 1843. That was 10 years after the abolition of the slave trade. So the formal judicial studies in the country started in this hall. Original design, the materials have been changed. Original design, the materials have been changed. Right.
That's the art market.
Soldiers stood here to receive signals from soldiers up there. They used flag, mirror, and then Morse code to communicate. Flag in the morning, mirror in the afternoon, Morse code in the evening. Communication.
So the fourth was for
Protection.
okay, but we'll just protect this part.
Yes.
Okay, so they can see.
Yeah.
So but what's happening there? Just
Some of our officers stayed there.
okay.
Yeah.
So you can't go there to tour the place too.
It's not open to the public, though. There's no guide there like this place.
Okay.
Governor's Hall, many years ago. Governor's Hall. One governor lived here at the time. Look at the differences between this place and the dungeons. Think about it. Think about it. Let's move to the bedroom. Governor's bedroom, many years ago. One governor lived here at the time. Look at the differences between this place and the dungeons. Think about it. Now you might have read so much as far as the subject matter is concerned. You might have read a lot of literature. You might have watched a lot of series, documentaries, movies. You might have even specialized in history. But having gone through the dungeons, having come here, let's reflect on the subject matter once again. Governor's bedroom. Let's go to the governor's reception area. That was the governor's process. Governor's process. Governor's reception area. Yes, they should entertain themselves right here. They should take their snacks here. Look at the space. Look at the number of windows here. Compare the situation here with the situation down there. Think about it. And let's conclude as the first English stage.
security post. That is one. And the second one.
Church of England, which changed them to Anglican Church. The church is now children's library. Methodist Church started in the 40s. So church here, active down there. Can we be in the ship, please? The ship. Yet slavery is ongoing in so many forms. Today we can talk of child labor, forced marriages. We can talk of mental or religious slavery, economic slavery, academic slavery, voluntary slavery, and so on and so forth. Now, addressing these forms of slavery call for multi-stakeholder approach. Individuals have a role to play in this exercise, I think. Governments across the globe have a role to play. Civil society groups have a role to play. Media has a role to play. Academia has a role to play. Business owners have a role to play. As cultural heritage site guide, I also have a role to play. I think and I believe that as individuals, wherever we find ourselves, we should all see ourselves as one people created by the same creator. No matter what. So far as we are human beings, somebody will serve the other. But then somebody serving you doesn't mean that you should treat the person as a slave. Let's respect one another. Treat each other with fairness and equality, justice. Let's do unto others whatever we would want others to do unto us. Whatever resources, whatever talents, whatever potential that God has given to each of us, let's value it and be self-reliant. Let us be transformed by the renewal of our mind. Because until we change the way we think, some of us will forever be in chains as slaves. Until we change the way we think, some of us will forever enslave others. Let's educate ourselves. Having gone through the dungeons doesn't mean that we should begin to hate one another. The truism is that hating one another wouldn't solve the problem. Shifting blames on others wouldn't solve the problem. Rather, let's come together in our society. Let's all join hands and campaign against slavery in our society. Because together we stand, divided we fall. The impact of one, there can be a change. Therefore, as individuals in our own small way, let us go out there and be the agent of change that we want to see within our immediate environment. On that note, I want to appreciate you for your time with me. My name has been Kofi Issa for having you as my guest. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a fruitful new year.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. You can now take as many pictures as you want. Indeed, you can be here till next morning.
Then I'll bring a ship.
So how does it feel doing this work for so many years?
I feel proud.
Don't you get emotional?
It's part of me, so the emotional aspect is not being felt so much though. But then it's a great opportunity addressing great people like you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we are done with the tour around the Cape Coast Castle. I don't know your take on slave trade, on religion, but this is something we should all think through it. There's still slavery going on, as the tour guide said. We treat others as if they are not humans. Let's all think through it and act right. I've been around the coast, I've traveled around the cocoa belt of Ghana. I've also seen child labor. I saw child labor. I saw a child carrying a bag of poultry manure to use in fertilizing cocoa farms. So these are all slave trade. Think about it. Think about it. What do you think? What do you think about slavery? What do you think? I'll leave you to your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. My name is Esther Sari. Have a nice day.